we're gonna talk about AI, some things that exciting and some things that we should taken care of for the future. Can I hear it one more time? Good morning, everyone. Yeah, thank you. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Argitendo from Tanstud, and today I get to sit with the one whose story perfectly bridge between technology and design. Felix Lee is the CEO of ADPList, a mentorship platform that started with a simple Google spreadsheet during the pandemic and has now hundreds of thousands of mentors and mentees across 140 countries. And what's interesting is that Felix began his journey as a designer, and he grew up in his parents' bakery. And yeah, I think we will want to hear how that same mindset translates into the age of era in AI in design and also the future of product buildings. Felix, great to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. And you know, when I first came this morning, outside was quite empty. I'm sure all of you would agree it's quite empty outside. And then when me and Agi walked here, we were like, oh wow, the room is pretty packed. So we're gonna try to, you know, give a very good show to all of you. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising you guys really packed with the place today. Yeah, I'd like to begin with something a bit more personal.
Yeah, of course.
You have often shared your stories about growing up in your parents' bakery and seeing how much care goes into something as simple as loaf of bread. How did that environment teach you or shape you as a designer?
Yeah, you know, I think it's a great question to start. You know, when I grew up in my parents' bakery with my grandparents as well, you know, one of the things that you see is the end-to-end experience of running a bakery, right? Everything from the service in front of the store and behind the store, you know, what you do to make the bread, to cut the bread, to package the bread, and including all the way back up to the shop house, where my aunties used to sort of pick up orders as well and phone calls like customer support stuff, right? You get to see the whole experience as a kid. And I remember, you know, when I was in high school, you know, I graduated as a top student, right? And it was very interesting. And at that year, I was also very entrepreneurial, so I had sold my first company. And I remember my teacher asking me, you know, how do we create more students like you? You know, and this was like 6 years ago. And I said, you cannot, right? You simply cannot. And it's not because you can't, but it's because how many times, you know, in someone's life you could, you know, grow up in such an environment where you get to see the manufacturing of the end-to-end process of a bread all the way from behind to in front of that. And I used to do deliveries as well with my dad. And so, you know, what I learned, you know, through that whole process was that, you know, great design is not just one part of the experience, but it's an entire part of the experience as well. And what I mean is that when you think about designing a product, you shouldn't just think of designing that particular screen, but it's how do people even get to that screen? How's the entire experience even before they get to that screen and even after that screen, right? To think holistically about that entire experience. And I think if you look at today's world, one of the best brands to ever do this is Apple, right? You know, you don't just buy the phone, you buy the entire ecosystem from iCloud to going to the Apple store to perhaps being a part of the developer community to watching the WWDC, right? It's a whole experience by itself as a brand. And I think that is, you know, great design, right? It's a totality of experience, not just one part of a singular, you know, journey.
Yeah, so it teaches you to think not just the design of the presence, but also before the user interacts with the product and also after the user interacts with the product as a whole holistic approach. Yeah. Interesting. Let's bring that philosophy into today's AI world. Why do you think designers should embrace to learn to working with AI now?
Well, you know, it's an interesting question as well, again, about AI. You know, ADPList is funded by Pick 15, and if you guys know Pick 15, they were formerly known as Sequoia Capital. And last Sunday, I got on a call with Rajan, who is the managing director at Pick 15. And I told him, I said, look, like as a founder, I've heard all these stories, and even myself, we don't know what to do in the age of AI, right? Like there's so many tools. How many of you go to X daily, like a daily thing, X, Twitter, yeah. And you see so many new tools, right? Like you have Lovable, you have Bolt, whatever, and Superbase and stuff like that. And I said, people are confused. They don't know where to start. And he told me this, right, on the call. He said, when you think about sort of where AI is right now, it's almost like the 1990s of internet, right? Where there wasn't any mobile, there was no iOS App Store, there was no Google Play Store. It was so early on. There wasn't even a crash yet, in early 2000s of the internet bubble. So AI is still so early. And I think that designers shouldn't jump into things like, oh, I need to quickly be the expert of like Lovable or Bolt. But I think designers should experiment, right? Have this experiment mindset of, hey, it's a new tool, and experiment in things that are aligned with your workflows today, right? So for example, your workflow is that you want to prototype with and show it to your product managers or to your managers. And if Lovable is a good way to do it, then you should try Lovable. But if you're trying Lovable because it's the hype, then it's the wrong way to think about things, right? You don't ever want to try something just because everyone is talking about it. And there's this notion going on around with designers that designers should get on Cursor. But I talked to 10 designers, the quiet ones, right, that are not loud on Twitter or on Instagram. I mean, they tell me the honest truth. I go to Cursor because everyone say goes to Cursor, but I'm not a developer. Cursor is churning out code, so I don't understand anything about Cursor. So why are people saying designers should get on Cursor? So clearly, first of all, Cursor has a lot of work to do there. And then they say they go to Lovable. I said, great. And they say Lovable, that the UI that Lovable generates are like UI slop, right? Like AI slop. And so, it's still a long way for AI to be great to produce something. But I think it's great that designers are just experimenting with things. And my advice is just like, not be afraid, try things, but don't feel like you have to just integrate it by tomorrow into your workflow. Yeah.
Fantastic. So designers should embrace the always experiment mindset while always picking tools that really suitable for them, not just picking the ones that on the hype right now. Yeah. So as we know, like Lovable and other AI product building stuff can generate ideas and prototypes in seconds. But great design still should feel human, right? How do you find the balance between what AI can do and what should stay human?
Well, I spent the last 2 years, most of my time in San Francisco, the heart of tech and Silicon Valley. And where we come from in the Bay Area, there's a lot of talk about technology, right? How it's going to replace things and everything of sorts. And I think for a very long time, design in tech seems to have drifted away from the human touch. You see a lot of B2B SaaS with the same exact dashboard, needing to monetize, and then you see just a lot of things getting churned out, especially in the AI era. But I think what truly lacks in today's, era of designers is that, great design is ultimately formed by having a real connection with the people who are using it. And they need to be joyful to a certain extent, whether be it from the interactions or the feeling of when I am associated with your brand, it makes me feel different. And I think, at some point we probably lost that, as designers. There's just way too many things that we're designing just for function. And recently I put a tweet out, and I think a lot of people commented and retweeted on that, which is, we need to bring back joy in design, right? Ultimately, humans are not just functional. I mean, there are emotions to it. And design is a form of, way to express a certain intention through our great products, and I think that if we're able to kind of express that through our work, it's probably the best way to create generational products that can change the world. In many ways, I think the very few products that are doing that and still do that today I don't know, it's like probably Apple and Nike, the better brands that are like really old, like they know that, yeah, like they know that. But if you look at the recent sort of tools that are coming out, there's no soul to it. It's just a tool. There's no, you don't feel like it's a brand that you associate. I think probably the better one that has done something of sorts would be Claude, right? Claude would have done great marketing around it, but also extremely good with storytelling throughout the whole product, and there's a soul to it, and if you look at OpenAI, ChatGPT, it almost just feels like an AI company. It's like a very functional. It feels quite dystopian to a certain extent, and so if you want great products that people can associate themselves with, then put joy into it, put some human emotions into it. I think that's so important. And this isn't just your UI or UX. This is to your branding, your marketing, your messaging. I think that's key.
Wow. Joy in design. Yeah, I totally agree. In today's era, it's sometimes the one we kind of forget about. We as a designer should still put the joy and emotions, and always remember we create things not just for functions, but of course for the users. If we develop something with AI now, it's always about speed, right? Startups also, most of them celebrate speeds. Iterate faster, fail fast, ship fast. How do you decide as a designer when is it the best way to speed up, to get fast, and when to slow down and maybe stay human?
Well, we have, I have this really good friend who runs Carousel, and he's one of our angel investors, Suri, right? And I remember this conversation with him about a year ago or so, and I said, I don't feel like I'm moving fast enough as a company or as a CEO. And I remember him telling me that, sometimes in life and in startups, sometimes, fast is slow, slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. And I think that stuck with me for a very long time, because as startups, I think you tend to rush into building things based on feedback. You got to fix the bugs and stuff like that. But we really got to ask ourselves one question, and I learned this from the very best founders I've met, which is if I don't do this today, and if I don't fix this or launch this thing today, and if I were to look 5 years out or maybe like a year out, would my company have died because I didn't fix this bug, or because I didn't push out this feature, or because I wasn't AI first enough as a product? I don't think so. Most products die not for the lack of speed, but for the lack of product market fit. And of course, we can argue that speed is the way to find product market fit. But I think product market fit is this sort of really mythical term, because no one really knows what product market fit is until you get it. And you have worked in a startup, you would probably know that. And I'll share two stories, right? One is ADPList, and the other one is GoTrade. So I was part of the founding team at GoTrade. I was the first designer. I designed everything from GoTrade's logo to the app and everything. And when I joined, we just got out from YC, right? And then we raised I think a 7 million seed round, and then a 22 million Series A. But during that time, we had not launched a product at seed round yet. But when we launched, we realized that it was a hockey stick growth. Just a lot of people were using it in Indonesia, in Philippines, to trade US stocks, right? And that was when we felt like, oh wow, we have a real product market fit here. It wasn't, and people were paying for it, right? It wasn't something that was determined by a certain metric. It was just you feel the pull from the market. And there was no AI, no nothing. It was just that, you know. And with ADPList, I think the same thing. I was at GoTrade when ADPList was founded. So I was practically running two things at, you know, at a time. It was about 5 years ago. And I remember my boss, my ex-boss, came to me and he asked me this question. He said, "Hey, Felix, I see that you're in the office and you're working on two things. So don't, you know, if you want to work on two things, don't let your boss know." And he said, you're working on GoTrade, and we're growing, and you're leading design, and you're also working on this side thing called ADPList, which people are talking about on LinkedIn. And he said, frankly, we cannot let you do that in a company. And I said, okay, so what's the conclusion? And he says, you know, I either got to leave the company and do ADPList full time, or, you know, I stay here in GoTrade and I don't do ADPList. I think it's a tough choice. But back to the product market fit was that when he gave me this decision, you know, I look at the amount of data that we have on ADPList at the time. It was a spreadsheet. And I saw a lot of people who were actually not from Singapore, not from Indonesia, not from, you know, Southeast Asia countries. There were some, but a lot of them were from the United States and from India and pretty much everywhere around the world. And I realized that it was a very universal problem, that people could not access great mentorship as and when they want. And so we were also getting a lot of people sharing on social media, the spreadsheet, like a literal spreadsheet people were sharing. And that was when I realized that this don't happen every day. The fact that you have a spreadsheet or you just have an idea and people are like sharing virally about it, it doesn't happen every day. So, and I decided to eventually leave my job and then run ADPList full time with my co-founder. And then we just saw, like, you know, after the website launched, even more people came and everything of sorts. So even up to today, 4 years later, we have spent $0 on marketing. So you know, if in regards to speed, I mean, we weren't fast with a lot of things, but we were certainly, as design founders, you know, we were very intentional about what we launched and everything. We rather be right and accurate than to be just throwing shots after shots after shots. I mean, you always want to make sure that every shot you take feels like the last shot you're going to take. And you want that to be as accurate as possible.
Wow, great ones. Yeah, I totally agree. Product market fit is sometimes it's not about how the matrix speaks itself, but sometimes it's just a gut feel. You can feel it if you talk to the users and you see how the user interact with your product. All right, let's moving on to the generative AI. As we all know, working with generative AI as a designers, it's like the name, generative. It's kind of guessing, right? Yeah. I call it an iterative refinement time, the hidden hours of tweaking and fine-tuning the AI outputs until they feel right. From your perspective as a designer, how do they find the balance between refinement with care, but not getting stuck in perfections using AI?
You know, I think it's always a struggle for designers to think about perfection versus just going out there, and even as founders as well. And how many of you here have worked with CEOs? I'm just raise of hand, like direct founder CEOs. Just raise your hand.
Are there any founders?
Oh yeah, there. You know, our founders are quite a dictator, right? They try to dictate things in their way. And some of you smiling there, you probably know what I mean. Especially the CEOs, they are quite dictators, you know. And I speak that for myself, I'll be honest. And I think that, you know, most founders want perfection, and as they should. You know, they push the standards, they raise the ceiling of what is possible. But I think as a designer, as an operator, I think you and even as a founder, you have to know that, you know, what is something that is just acceptable and just works well. And I draw this lesson from a very recent case study as a designer that I personally am writing right now, and I'm putting out soon, which is the case study of Perplexity browser, Comet, versus the the browser of Arc and Dia, right? So how many of you have heard of an Arc browser, right? It's a pretty new browser, I think from 2 years ago or 1 year ago, and then there's Perplexity Comet. So when Arc came out, you know, it was absolutely terrible. Yeah. And until today, it's still terrible, I'll be honest. And Perplexity Comet, when it came out, about a few months ago, it was in beta in July. When I saw the UI and I saw the experience, I thought it looks exactly like Google Chrome. Yeah. It's like a copy, right? But I also thought that was amazing. It was like a Google Chrome but with AI features. And I thought that was incredible because they didn't try to reinvent something like Arc browser, right? Arc browser, if you look at it, it's completely reinvented. It doesn't look like Google Chrome. It's like the sidebar is not at the top. I mean, the navbar is not at the top. It's at the side. And you have like tabs and whatever. And it just feels like users need to, you know, relearn something completely new. And I think when you look at Comet today, it's a $1 billion lesson in design, which is they did not reinvent. What they, in fact, they did was that they did something which I thought was incredibly genius, was that they didn't want to reinvent. They just simply put the same exact interactions that you are used to, and they just added the AI features, just so that they would help you understand this is how AI would work in a browser. So your mental model would be like, this is easy to adopt, and all I got to do is to learn about the AI, not the entire browser. And so today, more people are adopting Comet than Arc, for sure. And Arc is a perfect example of a Silicon Valley bubble, right? Where you think that innovating new things means that the world adopts it, but that rarely happens. I mean, great design comes from just understanding the world as it is, and not what you think and want it to be. And even if you look at Apple iPhone, the first iPhone, I mean, it wasn't arguably the first smartphone. Everything that Apple could do, except for the App Store, or even the App Store, was already available in BlackBerry. People were comfortable with BlackBerry. Apple just made it 10 times better. And I think that's going to happen with a lot of great products that are coming out soon. I mean, Notion just made, Google Docs and everything else 10 times better. Figma just made Sketch 10 times more collaborative. The UI is roughly the same. Had they reinvented the UI though, Figma, they would not have worked, right? And if you look at just observe every single product, you'd rather have similar patterns than to reinvent. And I think that means that when you reinvent, when you have similar patterns, you don't have to move that fast. I mean, it's purely just stealing the design and reinventing a little bit, and I think that 100% works out very well.
Fantastic. Always remember to not design for the perfections, but design for what works for the users. Moving on to the next questions. You've mentioned that taste is the new mode for designers now. We're seeing AI tools outputs like Lovable and Replit and other stuffs is the outputs are still feel cold, right? Feel generic, are still the same, very similar between one and another, the UI output. As a designer, how do you define taste now? Using AI, and is it something that can actually be taught, or something that designers should develop themselves through experience?
Well, I think my unpopular opinion is that, and that is my observation of great designers, is that taste cannot be taught. I mean, if you have it, you have it. If you don't have it, then you certainly would, lag behind a little bit versus the others. And the reason, so going back to where we start, which is taste is the mode, meaning taste is a competitive advantage, is because, with AI, a lot of things are going to get like faster, development time, produce much faster as well. And all of you, if you're internet natives, and I believe most of you are, you realize that quite frankly, a lot of things on the internet are the same. So even the fonts that are using, I think these days people tend to use a little bit of adversary fonts, a little bit, sharper, like serif fonts, a little bit, stretched out, much like Perplexity's kind of, vibe, right? And you see a lot of websites copying that. And that's great, of course. I think it's great to copy, and I'll talk about copying designs, which is it's great to copy interactions, but it's not quite good to copy branding, because branding should feel unique to you, but interactions could be the same. And so, I think when you think about taste, it's really about understanding what people would feel towards it. Because taste is not a thinking thing. It has nothing to think about taste. But it's how people feel towards a brand. When you think about a smartphone, you probably think about an iPhone. When you think about a cup of coffee, you probably think of Starbucks, right? And I think that the great best brands and best products itself has great taste because they are able to sort of craft its own path and message. And I think that's very rare, to be honest. That's extremely rare. Even at ADPList, we're still figuring out a lot of things. So branding is one of those things, and like sort of taste is one of those things where it's going to truly differentiate you from your competitors. And the reason why we would much rather use ADPList than versus our competitors, it's because of our community, right? We have a great taste in making this a mission-first company. We want to democratize mentorship. We want to break down barriers that the rich and the powerful and the elites have created. We want to break that barrier. And everyone who joins ADPList, wants to be a part of that mission. They want to be that Robin Hood of knowledge. They want to take things that were not that were not available for them before and give it to the rest of the world. And versus when you join our competitors, I mean, when people go to our competitors, they don't feel that. It's just a functional platform. But the functions are the same, But truthfully, I think taste is really about all the way down to about, how you interact with your users, the messaging and the branding that they can get behind. And then the product itself, the UI and everything, those I think are quite secondary in terms of taste. But really it starts from the top, yeah.
Fantastic. So taste is the new mode. It's not just about how the brand looks and how the UI feels, but it's much more deeper than that. Let's bring that into this question. If you were to build ADPList from scratch with AI in the mix, what would you do differently back then and now?
Wow, that's a very good question, I thought about it, actually, but I'm sure this is going to piss some of our mentors off. But it's also an interesting proposition, which was, if I were to rethink about ADPList today, and if I were to compete with ADPList, I mean, I would probably do AI clone mentors, meaning you don't need a human in the loop. But of course, there's a downside and a good side to it. The good side of it is that, these AI clone mentors are 24/7 available. You want to talk to it to the middle of the night and you want to get on a call, it's there. It's always available. It's low cost, low customer support. It's just AI controlled. Pretty much everything is there. But I think the downside is that, mentorship and certain knowledge transfer, it's always great to hear it from a person, right? And we have this, there's this company in Silicon Valley that does AI clone mentorship, and I had a conversation with their CEO. We had so many conversations about the same exact topic, but I think at the end of it is that, humans prefer, for some parts of their life to be shared with another humans. And that means like their feelings about their bosses, their managers, dealing with things. They don't want it to just be a script. Sometimes people just need an avenue for another person to listen. And so, I think if I could do it, I would introduce some form of AI clone mentors, but probably not for the whole platform, yeah.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, I think so. Maybe final questions for you. So the audience can bring something more practical for their day-to-day works. I think seeing how AI accelerates today, lowering the barriers of product building itself, do you think, because taste is the remote, right? And taste, the ones who got taste better, I think it's the designer. Do you think more designers should become founders?
Oh, yeah, that's a good. Well, you know, YC is looking for a lot of design founders. So if you want to be a, I'm not from YC, but you know, they are. But I certainly think more designers should become founders and start failing a little bit more. I mean, being a founder is tough, right? Like, you know, you got to think about money and everything and stuff like that. But I think more designers should become founders in this era, just because, you know, development is getting faster, engineers are going to work faster as well, and designers will have more sort of room to contribute from a taste, process perspective, design thinking perspective. I think that's going to be very, very, very necessary. So yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of design founders today, but you know, more of you in this room should consider.
Great. Any designers here?
Yeah, we will have to extend the time a little bit. I'm very sorry, but I would love to take some questions. Okay, yeah, we have one.
Can we take some questions first?
Maybe 2 minutes, 3?
2 minutes. Okay. Anyone?
Yeah, anyone would do. Just make sure it's a great question.
Hi, I'm nice. It's a nice discussion, by the way. I just want to ask, what do you think is the importance of personal AI literacy for product designers and just everyone in the organization? Thank you.
Wow. You know, I certainly think that AI literacy is an interesting term to think of it. It's like learning a new subject, right? I mean, it goes back to what we discussed, which is experiment. Make sure that you are actively knowing what's, you know, new out there. Go and experiment the moment it's out. Even if you don't like it, you know, make sure that you at least try it. You know, frankly, I mean, we're still so early. It's very hard to know what will stick around. Will Livable be around in 10 years? I cannot see it, right? Maybe they might not. I cannot see it. And so it's still so early. Is it a bubble? Certainly not, because it's useful for society and it's progressing. But with everything, there is waves, right? Right now we're in an up wave, but there will be a down wave, and then that's when we will see who survives. And then but I think you almost want to be quite consistent with things, with riding waves. And so you want to keep learning everything and make sure that when the time is right, of course, you are able to capitalize on that particular skill set as well, whether it be, you know, cursor, Livable, and whatnot. Yeah.
Cool.
Last one.
Last one questions? Can do? Okay, last one.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
My name is Chai. I want to ask you some of questions. Before that, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts earlier with us. First of all, when you say to us that designers need to keep open and being open and stay learning, utilizing AI in our daily workflow in creative things. However, my big question is that, however, when we are also pretty much, when using AI, we are pretty much understand how important authenticity is. And what do you think is the best way for us to both stay open, keep learning, keep exploring without losing ourselves in the process, and how we start defining that boundaries between AI and our integrity as a designers. Secondly, actually, I want to share this interesting sentence on the book that I am currently reading, and I'm really curious about your take on this. So I'm currently reading about the book called 21 Byte by Jane Witherspoon. It was said that instead of calling AI as artificial intelligence, I think we should better call it AI as alternative intelligence, because everyone definitely needs alternative. And I think if we say it alternative, we can be more open and less skeptic on it. Thank you. I think that's all.
All right, thank you. So the first question is embracing AI, but what should stay human? And the second question is treat AI as alternative intelligence rather than artificial ones. Maybe you can answer in 1 minute.
Yeah, of
Sure.
course. I'm so excited that the room is very full. So, how to stay human? I mean, frankly, like, one thing to stay human is the art of being human. And I think that in many ways, being a human is, in many ways, the ideology of it is wanting to see progress, right? Every single thing that human being does is to see progress in themselves and the people around them. And I think that AI helps to support that. And we should think of AI as you said, to the second question, as a part of our lives, and not trying to say how do we stay humans, right? I think AI will be a part of our lives as much as like smartphones are a part of our lives. And the earlier you sort of adopt it and get into their mindset, I think the faster it comes. And the easier it will be for your own sort of progress as well. So I don't know if there's an actual distinction to want to differentiate and stay human, but I think that the intention of wanting to stay human and touch other people's lives is human by itself. That is how I would think about it. And to your second question about what is it, like the
We should treat AI not just
Yeah.
like artificial intelligence, but an alternative intelligence.
Well, I think that's been answered by what I just said, right? Which is treat it as a part of your life, and definitely it wouldn't go wrong. I mean, if you trust in Sam Altman, sure, or you can trust in some of them, right? But do your own research. Make sure that you have a thinking of your own. You have convictions, and you have beliefs, and then you take things that AI tell you or recommend to you with a pinch of salt, and I think that should be the way to go.
Cool. Felix, thank you so much for the conversations, for the great insights, for reminding us that even though technology moves fast, but care and intentions are the ones who truly matters to make it things more meaningful. And for everyone around here, whether you are a designer, founders, and product builders, keep experimenting, keep refining with care, and keep defying expectations. Thank you, Felix. Thanks, everyone.